buddy. Look at
How you
this.
doing, Ed Mortensen? What's this?
God. Well, it's probably over that side.
Well,
Nope.
well,
You stay there. You stay there. Ching.
clang.
Okay, now let's do where you stay there. Stay back to where you were, or go
Yeah.
back to where you were, and then let's try that. Ching. And then I'll stay where I'm at, and you go to the other side.
Oops. Clang.
Listen, if we haven't covered our bases on those three,
It's a bunch of donkeys going on over here still.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. This guy, Gil Grand, dude.
Gil Grand, a Canadian that's done well in Canada and in the United States of America,
Wow.
which is a tough thing. Gil Grand is an 8-time Canadian Country Music Association nominee and CCMA Male Vocalist of the Year and Record Producer of the Year winner. His debut album on Sony Nashville's Monument imprint was called Famous First Words, produced the #1 single along with several top 10s, gaining Grand the momentum to release 2 more award-winning projects. In 2007, Grand co-owned a music publishing company, Grand & G Music, which took him CESAC's Song of the Year award for music publisher on Chris Young's #1 hit, Tomorrow, and a Grammy for God and My Girlfriend's, recorded by none other than Aretha McIntyre. So that's some pretty heavy hitting. Overall, since 1998, over 11 awards and nominations from CCMA's, Grammy. So clearly a cat that's been around the music business and done well as well in the music business. So
Let's roll him in, Frank.
let's roll him in. I'm excited to meet this fella.
Do you want to do the honors?
Have I done this before? How do you do this?
No.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Well, back to into your regular or arpeggio, whatever you want to use.
Oh, yo.
Gil Grand.
I got nothing left.
Gil Grand.
Gil Grand, take 2.
Have you ever felt the wind blow by and wonder where it blows? What do you say we take a ride and chase it down the road? All I want is to run away now. You and me, baby, right out of this town. I want to ride off into the setting sun. I want to run, no matter how far, as long as you're riding in the getaway car. Who cares where we're going? Getting there's half the fun. I want to run.
You are in Jasper, Alabama right now, eh?
No kidding. I know. It's it's nice and sunny and kind of like a Canadian summer here in the winter, So I'll take it. I grew up in Sudbury. I've shoveled enough snow in my lifetime that I never want to do it again.
Yeah.
Fair enough, yeah. No one needs that.
I was telling Frank that when we did that little tour, the Conway Twitty tour up there, and we went to that one little banquet room.
That was in the hometown. I was in Sudbury.
Yeah, was that in Sudbury?
That show, well, the one you're talking about, well, we had done a northern kind of Ontario tour in February of all times, if I recall. I had forgotten about winter, but that was awesome, man. It was sold out. It was in a big hall and Crusoe Club, and I think it was 650 people or something.
Yeah. That's a cool club. We played there after you.
We decided to drive up there in February as well and do another show or 2 later. They got the bocce ball in the basement. That's the club we're thinking of. I don't
know. I didn't go in the basement, but maybe.
another show where Larry Barrio was there,
Mm.
and he introed you.
Yes, that was in
That little room.
the valley in Hanmer.
Yeah, in Hanmere, right? And all of them were going snowmobiling the next day because it was that much snow hit. So they were all like, "We're leaving early."
A lot of those people were probably my relatives, immediate relatives.
Immediate family.
Yeah.
A lot of family still up there, Gil?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Up in that area.
Mom and dad live in Sturgeon Falls, and so do a lot of my aunts and uncles, and but my brother and sister, they live out west in Calgary.
Okay, yeah. Beautiful country up there.
Beautiful.
Best time is in this, this late summer, early fall. After that, it's you're taking chances driving up there, anyways.
Yeah, I lived there for 7 years in Calgary, and I really enjoyed it. Got to play the Stampede a whole bunch, and a lot of great venues. I mean, Calgary and Edmonton area is just great country music grounds, to play.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Last year was the first time. Was it 2019? Was I think the first time I got to 2019 and was the first time playing in Alberta for me. I've flown over it so many times into BC, but we went twice, 3 times into that place in 1 year. So it was pretty exciting. And yeah, you're right. In all genres, fantastic musicians and players, but particularly for country, a lot of great stuff going there.
Yeah.
Exciting.
So, Mr. Grand, how would you take us through a bit of a timeline tour?
A timeline tour.
Well, where did your career start off? How old were you? What were you like? How did you get into music? Because you were, am I allowed to say this? You were a nurse before, right?
Well, no. You're not allowed to say that. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, whatever I'm not allowed to say, we'll cut out. Just give me a detailed list.
It's funny how you can ask, like, am I allowed to say that, but you have to say it in order to ask it. So
it's already said.
Yeah, I definitely, it was, I always wanted to, I knew I was going to pursue music. It's something I've always wanted to do. And, but, I thought it was important also to have a fallback plan if music wasn't going to be my life, to just have a profession, something that was kind of going to be able to, relocate with or whatever, that kind of a thing. So I did. I took, I had an aunt and an uncle who had taken a nursing program, and it was actually a nursing assistant. It wasn't the 2-year thing. It was a 1-year course, which at the time, I mean, it paid pretty good. You were making $18 an hour back in the 80s. And it was a year course. And so I ended up in North Bay, and I worked at a psychiatric hospital in a forensic ward, kind of chaperoning 22 inmates that were in there for serious crimes and stuff. And so I did that for a year, and decided music was what I was going to pursue after that. So there you go. And I never went back. I never looked back.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So at that point, you were still up north in Ontario, and did you just start your career in that kind of area and then expanded it like everybody else?
Yeah. I mean, I started out just kind of singing in contests, and I guess I did pretty good because when I would win the contest, which means I would win money, and I'd buy myself a guitar, and it was kind of something that I did actually to a level where in Ontario, in Simcoe, Ontario, they would have a Canadian Open country singing contest, which was a nationwide singing competition. And so I did that, and I won that 3 times, and then they didn't let me participate anymore. But what's cool about it though is they put your name on a plaque that they have in the Country Music Hall of Fame in Alberta, which is kind of cool. But anyway, so that was where I started off, just kind of singing in those competitions. It was fun. Got to meet a lot of people, a lot of artists today, like Beverly Mahood and Tay-Bay, and a lot of us were in those things at the same time, and went on to have careers in country music. But and then from then I started to I'm at one of the Canadian CCMA's, Canadian Country Music Association events. So not only do they have the award show, but if you go to the CCMA, it's just like a 4-day long thing where it has all kinds of workshops and different showcases and stuff like that. I showcased at a CCMA event one year and met a music publisher from Toronto. His name was Frank Davies, and he had a company called TMP Publishing Company, and he signed me to a publishing deal / development deal, which then started bringing me to Nashville to do some co-writing, and that's where I met my soon-to-be record producer at that time, Byron Hill, who Byron has written many hits. He's a very successful songwriter. Got me a record deal, produced my first CD, and that's what took me to Nashville from Sudbury.
I don't know what it was like when you were starting out, what it was like down south here in the city. But you just went right from north, right down south, right to Nashville.
Well,
apart right all together. It's good.
I did some pretty stupid things before that. I mean, I went to, I had, when I was in my nursing program, and then working as a nurse, making some good money, I had just bought a house and I had a new car and I had, all the things that, a lot of us kind of, when you're young, you're starting out and you kind of buy all these things and you're settling down. And I realized I was like in my 20s and I was settled down. And I was like, so I sold my house and I sold my car and I rented a U-Haul and moved to LA because in my mind, I thought, well, I'm not going to go to Nashville. That's where everybody goes to get a record deal. I'm going to go to Los Angeles and see about the music scene there as far as country goes. And at the time, there was, Mike Curb is a big successful person in country music in the U.S. And at the time, he was in L.A. And there were bands like playing in the L.A. scene, Exile, and those guys were there, and you could get to jam with those people and do try to be discovered there, kind of a backdoor in. And then, but that was in '92, and then that's when the whole riot thing happened, and everybody from country music, Mike Curb including, left LA and went to Nashville. So I had spent all my savings from my house and all that kind of stuff and blew it all, and ended up coming back and moving back to my parents' house in Sudbury before all of that other stuff I was telling you about where we went to at Nashville. I got on the right track initially again. It was a learning curve. Got to do some cool stuff. LA was cool.
Did you get to Bakersfield while you were there?
I did go only later on, only once I was signed to, I eventually signed to Sony in Nashville. So having that US deal brought me to all of the, obviously all the states and all the major market areas and stuff. And Bakersfield was one that I got to go play and met Buck Owens and his son Buddy, who ran the station, and
nice.
The Crystal Palace in Bakersfield was a very good club and stuff, and they got to play there, so that was cool.
Very cool, man. Right on. Yeah, it's a nice journey. I think along that way, when I said it was nice to meet you when we introduced, I think it was you. It was an acoustic showcase somewhere. It was you, Thomas Wade, and Colin Amy were performing. We might have been one of the 2 or 3. A band that was opening that particular show. So it was, I want to say St. Catharines, something like that.
Right.
At some point.
Well, I mean, I sure did a lot of that too, for sure. And Thomas and Colin and everybody else, we are all playing the clubs and
because when you mentioned
festivals and fairs together and stuff like that, and I'm sure that was one of those things.
Cool, I just remember thinking, this guy can sing. This guy. I mean, all 3 of you. That was like a powerhouse of singers up there. So
Well, thanks.
Nice to hear.
It was part of it. It was a necessity.
Yes. Well, exactly.
Exactly. So, how long did you spend in LA then on that little?
Just a year, man. Like a year.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, this is showing how smart I am. But I decided I wasn't going to live in LA. I decided to live in Palm Springs, which was like the nicer, more expensive. Me and Bob Hope were like living next door to each other, kind of thing. So it's like, that didn't help. But I met a producer there. That's why there was a producer who lived in Palm Springs who was actually working with John Phillips, and doing recordings and commercial stuff and TV scores and movie soundtracks and stuff like that. So I did some work singing on some jingles and on some commercial things with him to make some money, and he was my connection to what was going to be with my curb and that whole thing. But so there was a reason to live in Palm Springs, but it didn't help my finances.
Yeah, but it helped you write a lot of good country songs, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure, man. That's all about writing country songs, is all about experiences.
While she lay sleeping, I stay out late at night and play my songs. And sometimes all the nights can seem so long. I'm glad when I finally make it home, all alone, while she lays dreaming. Try to get undressed without the lights, and quietly she says, "How was your night?" And I turn to her and say, "It was alright," and I hold her tight, and she believes in me. I'll never know just what she sees in me. I told her someday if she was my girl, I could change the world with my little songs. I was wrong, but she has faith in me, and so I go on trying faithfully. And who knows, maybe on some special night, if my song is right, I will find a way, while she lays waiting.
So when you moved to Nashville, Gil, like officially, how old were you then?
27.
Okay, yeah. And so how would you relate the scene from then till now? Like how has it changed a lot? I've only been to Nashville once only, so I didn't have any comparison from say 15 years ago to, and this was probably 4 years ago, is there?
Yeah, it's dramatically different. And it was, even when I went there for the first time, it had already been dramatically different from the people that I loved listening to stories about how Nashville and Music Row used to be. But at least I got to experience some of it. So when I got to Nashville, the area of business is called Music Row. And so Music Row is literally like 4 or 5 blocks, and all of the business, were major labels and major publishing houses and stuff, were literally in homes, like just like going down a neighborhood, and this house is MCA, and it was so interesting and hard to believe that everything I had envisioned in my mind by just being this kid in Sudbury listening to George Strait on the radio and stuff, that it all came from what I was looking at and thinking, this is Nashville. And but it had, because everything was kind of close together, it had a great vibe about it, and there was a lot of songwriting going on, and people were, you could tell like people were writing songs and crossing the streets with their guitars and going to another writing appointment and stuff. Is such a creative vibe in there. And it was like that for quite a while, until I started my publishing company in 2007. So I got there in 97. 2007, I had a publishing company, and that I started on Music Row, and it continued to it was still that way. But then now Music Row is essentially non-existent. I mean, it started, condos started getting built, and historic buildings were getting torn down and replaced with condominiums and stuff. And so that whole area became a living more residential area, and the businesses kind of got spread out and everywhere. So that unique vibe, is not like that anymore. There's still, you can, fortunately, you could still go, and there's still publishing companies there, which you can get together and write and do that thing still, but the feeling is different, know. And when I got there too, I mean, there used to still be a lot of record shops and a lot of historic buildings that were there on the row, that I watched, get replaced and demolished and turned into restaurants and other things too. So I watched it go away. And I wish it would have been nice to have been there, prior to experience it, And so some of the veteran writers that I've written with, like Byron Hill, for instance, who's been there a long time, I just love hearing their stories about how it was literally, you would write a song and go across the street and play it for Randy Travis or somebody, it was cool,
Yeah. My only time in Nashville was '97. So when you got down there, so I know what you're talking about. That whole row. We were recording in it was a house with a studio on the back end of the house, and the same thing. Just all the little clubs. Like I think they were doing vocals, so the musicians were off. So we just saw, I don't know, 5 or 6 absolutely amazing bands at 2:00 in the afternoon.
It had an environment that made it really hard for people to leave, and I think like anyone that's creative and musical, even today though, they go to Nashville, let's say, for the first time, and they're surrounded by this energy and creativity, and they feel like this is where they belong. Like, wow, I want to live here because I want to just continuously be surrounded by that. It's essentially the same as you've heard in LA, your waiters and your people that park your cars and are all actors, and but it's like that in Nashville. Everybody's a songwriter or an artist, and
sure,
what you can to survive and stay there. So it's pretty interesting.
When I was there was still that energy from a tourist perspective. It was still pretty cool place to walk down that street and hear music coming from multiple, windows.
Yeah,
that energy was still pretty cool.
That still is there. So that's the tourist part of town. So like that's Broadway, right? Lower Broadway is the main drag down Nashville, and it is even more so than, like, now it's over the top. There are so many bars and multi-level bars. Some of the places you go in and there's 5 stories and there's a band playing.
Is the boot store still there?
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of the places that are touristy kind of thing are all there. That nightlife there is really, really, really good. I mean, it's grown. So that's a good thing. Well, and the market here too, like, just to get on, like the people are moving here. It's like one of the biggest cities that's growing in the U.S.
Nice.
And so it's really thriving. I mean, things are obviously crazy right now. Everyone's kind of at a standstill. But I think, like, even once things open up again, it's even going to be more so about, people coming to Nashville and wanting to get out and sing a show,
Yeah.
Can't wait to go listen to music again, Yeah.
When I was there, 3 or 4 years ago, big move there was the rock guys, because that's what I was there doing. It was a rock session, not a country session, and it was the rock guys moving from the LA coming to Nashville, because that's where they're like, well, this is where we got to be now. Like, you just always think Nashville as country music and country western music, and then
no, I think it's the scene. I think it's just this, again, it's like it's one of the probably few places where you can still do things. I think Nashville does its thing differently, and so I think it appeals to those rock guys and everything. They're like, wow, they got a really cool thing in Nashville. They write, it's different how they get together to write songs. It's different how they cut music, all that kind of stuff, and so they like it. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of genres. Timberlake lives in Nashville. A lot of people move there and like liked the vibe there.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things I found when I was there as a side guy, as a like drummer,
Yeah.
the carding system. So when a band would come in, their gear was already there because they were using a carding service. Like I've never heard of that before ever. So there's companies that hold your gear. Is that you correct me if I'm wrong here, but do they hold your gear and then you're like, oh, I got a gig here, 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 and here, and they make sure your gear's there for you.
Yeah. It's carding. And we would. I mean, if they do it for sessions too, so a lot of session players will have their gear carded to the studio set up. They just walk in and play, but we would pay for that. You know, like when I do session or whatever, the carding fees were something that your demo part of your expenses is to pay.
Yeah.
If you wanted to hire a player that had his stuff carded, you paid for it.
Was it expensive? That service?
I mean, it was, you know, it wasn't cheap, you know, but I mean, the guys who were doing it were guys that were making the money. So they were the top guys, right? So they could afford it.
But it was a great survey. I remember in '97 we were there, and the keyboard player's keyboard that he brought down, we drove down. Something went on it second day in the session, and we were like, "What do we?" You know, it was at nighttime while we were recording, and oh, no problem. Make this phone call. Like, literally 15 minutes later, here's a keyboard being pulled out of a case, plugged in for you.
Yeah,
Half hour later, you're rolling again. And it wasn't cheap. I remember the.
I mean,
the
I get backline. I mean, we use backline all the time. You fly out to a show, you use backline, but it's somebody else's gear.
Yeah.
This was like their own personal gear delivered to them.
That's amazing. I love that. You know.
All their guitars and all their amps, all their stuff. Yeah, it would be in their locker, you know, and just they would tell them what they want to bring, and I would watch these guys set up, you know, and they'd have whoever was playing, they'd have their own way of doing it for them, you know, like it was set up the drums specifically. They would have it's got to be set up the way he likes to play them. And
now,
the old disc to measure your height.
Yeah.
Did that happen? That was affected when the flooding happened? No, that was a lot of those cardings.
That was, and so in 2010, you know, Nashville flooded.
Yeah.
And a lot of the downtown stuff got flooded, and so the storage facilities that held all those gear, a lot of them were destroyed. And so, I know there were a lot of musicians who cried a lot of tears because they had instruments that were very, very valuable, and can imagine, you know, something like that happening, you know, because it's you literally, if anything, would feel that your stuff is secure and locked and safe and watched over, so you wouldn't have to worry about your gear. But a lot of them unfortunately got caught in that flood.
I read a few of the reports just on some of the restoration of some of the guitars. Some of the acoustics were taking 6 years. They were just drying them out slowly over a period, and then before they could even, I think 5-year period before they could even start working on restoring the guitars. But
so my publishing company, on Music Row, it got flooded also, and we had a studio in the basement which totally got flooded, and had to redo the floors and the walls and all that kind of stuff, and it was a pain.
What was it? Was it just heavy rainfall, like unusual rainfall, or?
Yeah, there was crazy. I mean, it was that so at the end of Broadway is the Cumberland River. So there's a river that overflowed and poured into the city. I know there's something having to do with the dam also that I think was released at the same time or broke, or like it was a few things, but I do remember, I mean, I've never seen rain like I've seen in Nashville.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. The first time, like literally, I've never seen rain come down for as long as it can, in that amount of it's crazy. So it did rain like that.
A lot of humidity there.
Yeah.
When I was there, man, it was middle of July. It was my birthday. I was there during my birthday, July 15th.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get cool.
Oh no, it gets hot. It's very green.
Yeah.
Two-fan Eddie.
Two-fan amp. Yeah, I always got a small fan for right below my snare drum for things, and then always a big monster one right there, right beside.
All the audio guys are like, we're getting the fan in the mix.
Who's this joining us in the session?
That's a little kitty cat.
Oh, yeah, that's Ezra.
So, sir,
Yeah,
when you got
you know,
to
kind of
27, what happened then? How did that all?
What was that?
When you got to Nashville, 27, you moved there. What happened then? Because I know we talked a bit on the phone last week.
Yeah.
A tour, a couple groups that you went out on the road with, got signed at the same time. A lot of exciting stuff happened for you when you got there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. So I signed with Sony Nashville, and at the time Sony had two imprints. They had Columbia and Epic Records as part of the Sony Nashville imprints. And then so that year when they signed me, they were revitalizing an old imprint called Monument Records. And Monument before, was a pretty significant label that had Chris Christopherson and Dolly Parton and Willie Nelson and Roy Orbison, big acts that were on Monument Records. And the president of Sony at the time that I got my deal, Alan Butler, wanted to start up Monument again, and so signed two acts for that purpose. And so one was the Dixie Chicks, and one was me.
Wow, nice.
We were the two first signings to the label, which meant we were on the road together. We were doing radio promotion at the same time, so we went all over the United States and Canada, and did performances for radio, and just promoted our first singles. And so I got to know them obviously really well, which was a lot of fun. And but at the same time, truthfully, like their success was so massive that it overshadowed for sure me, and they definitely were trying to launch a new label again and be successful. So, they decided, well, this is happening. We're going to go full on Dixie and all that. And literally with me wanted to, I had Famous First Words came out, which did well in Canada. In the US, it was like it charted in the, I think 70s or 50s, in there somewhere. So not to their expectations or mine, but it was a thing where they decided, look, we're gonna break these girls, and then we're gonna make you start writing some more songs and hang out, and we're gonna revisit my whole deal, which put me in a situation where it was kind of unfortunate, because I had the opportunity being Canadian, and the Canadian industry was very welcoming and very excited and loved, my music and stuff, and wanted to do something. But I kind of my hands were kind of tied, because I was signed to a US label who was not doing anything with my music at the time anymore. And so I wasn't able to really excel as much as I really would have wanted to in Canada, because so that's just the nature of whatever timing, the business, the situation, and all that. And so fortunately I was able to once the Sony deal went away, I did move. That's when I moved to Calgary for a while and released some music independently. And those years were great, because I was acknowledged for what I was doing, and I was nominated for many CCMAs and won CCMA as male vocalist and all that kind of stuff. So, I still was able to bounce back from it and do well in Canada independently. And then that's in 2008 was when I had an opportunity to go back to Nashville, but at this time as a music publisher. So I met a gentleman, Randy Gee, who was from Fort St. John, British Columbia, oil and gas guy. He owned an airline company too, and big country music fan, and gave me an opportunity to run a publishing company in Nashville. So he brought me back there, and I've been here ever since.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great story. And you never had to go back to the psychiatric hospital.
No, not as an employee anyway.
There's still time.
What do you mean? He's there right now. He's not in Jasper, Alabama.
Yeah. What? There's no cat here.
That's a padded room.
Right. Two of them pop up right here.
Cry a little, just a little more. I know you've been hurting. Well, I've been hurting too. You say you were wrong for leaving, but you don't know what you've put me through. Maybe you should cry a little more, just a little more, and then you might know the way I feel. Maybe you should cry a little, just a little more. I know you've been lonesome, but you don't know what lonely is. No, you can look in my eyes and cry tears like this. Maybe you should cry a little more, just a little more, and then you might know the way I feel. Maybe you should cry a little, just a little more.
What's next for Mr. Gil Grand? Like, what are the projects that you have going now? Like, you sent us a little list, but maybe I'll let you tell us about them.
Yeah, well, I've always been somebody that keeps pretty darn busy, you know, and so I guess I could touch on some of the things that I'm doing as an artist, which is something obviously I want to keep doing. I've transitioned into performing, well, as you know, traditional country music shows. One was a Conway Twitty tribute show that I loved to play. It was so much fun. It's a great show, and it's great music. My favorite singer was Conway Twitty. So I mean, I'm the happiest I've ever been performing, singing these songs. I can't believe I get to walk out on stage and sing a whole night of those songs, man. And you know what? I'm just so happy because there's an audience for it still, and it's so many venues and places that love traditional country music, and fans are out there, not only in Canada, but in the US, like endless places to play. So I'm going to be continuing to do that. I will still do the Conway thing if anybody wants to book just a Conway show, but I'm also doing what I'm calling the Grand Tour, which is a traditional show across the board. So it's going to have all the legends within one show. So I'll do some Conway, but I'll also do some Earl Haggard and some George Jones and all of the other great artists that still need to have their music heard. And again, a lot of fun to play. And so that's one of the things I'm going to do as an artist. As a producer and a kind of business side of things, I'm working with a new artist, Phil Lauzon, who's from Quebec, that we just released his debut single called Break My Own Heart, and it just went to radio on my birthday, January 8th. And so we're working that thing, and it sounds great. And so it's fun to kind of be on the side of the things where I can kind of lend my experience and my knowledge and what I've learned as an artist to a new artist, and there's a lot. So yeah, so
Go to LA.
yeah, don't go to LA, exactly. That's how I open up my conversation. I have a company in Nashville called Nashville Song Plugger that I've been doing since 2011. And what we do there is we work and represent songwriters, and we service their music to producers and record labels and artists, and try to find them placement in Nashville and in the music scene there. And so that's something that's ongoing, and obviously even during the pandemic has kind of increased because people are at home and they're writing and they're creative. They have time to write music right now and record music. I'm finding in Nashville too, like a lot of the artists are taking advantage of being off the road to record even multiple projects. They're just going to have them in the can, and when it comes time to tour, they won't have to stop. They can just keep going. So that's a fun time. So plug in songs, and I mean that's a lot of what I'm doing right there.
We're doing a tour. I believe it's called the Gil Grand Country Music Tour.
Oh yeah,
from Ontario and down to Nashville, right?
Yeah, I mean, so that's something we haven't been able to officially launch and get one under our belt, but I do have. It's a country music touring. Yeah, exactly. We have a coach that we're going to bring groups of people to Nashville from Ontario or from other different parts, but we had one. Our first one was booked in March, and we had the thing booked and ready to go when we got shut down. So we were bringing a group from the Sudbury or Northern Ontario area to Nashville, and we were going to stay. I was going to perform on the bus a little bit for everybody, and then when we got to Nashville, they were going to stay at the Opryland Hotel, and we were going to go to the Nashville Opry show, and then they were going to do all kinds of other events and do some sightseeing, and we were going to do a performance. I was going to do the Conway show at the Nashville Palace in Nashville. So the whole tour was awesome, and it's something that we're going to pick up again as soon as we're able to promote it, sell tickets, and I really feel. I remember growing up in Sudbury before I was even just starting in the music business and just playing locally. There was a gentleman in Sudbury, Bill Rivers, who had Rivers tours, and that's what he did. He would bring groups of people to Nashville and to Branson, Missouri, and back to Sudbury, and perform he had artists performing on the bus, and he's since passed away, but I've always remembered how cool that was. And so I'm kind of at a place now again in my career where I feel like, we can have these fun tours, and I know Nashville so well, and I know how much country music is big and appreciated in Canada. So we'll start bringing some people and have these fun little tours.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, you might see me. I might be in the luggage compartment, but you'll see me on
I'll put you to work. You'll play a suitcase back there or something. And
you must have felt pretty good to come back to your own country. Now I know you've done a lot of success prior to that, and I mean, we were only started at that point. But at that point, it must have felt pretty cool, right?
It always does. It's always the best feeling whenever I get to come back, and it will always be that way, and I plan to eventually, live full time there again. I think it's just something that, you don't forget where you're from because it's where you grew up. It's like where you learned everything, and you're surrounded by people who love you and supported you and stuff like that. So I mean, it's an incredible feeling. I love Canada. I love everything about it, and I definitely plan to come a lot as much as possible, and hopefully have a place on a lake somewhere there so I can do a little fishing and a little hiking.
That's a really good transition right into this next question about fishing. You like to fish. So I hear.
I love to fish. I fish every week. I was going to go fishing, but I had to do this today.
We could have did it from the boat, guy.
We could have. I've actually done stuff from the boat before. We did a thing for the station in Regina where the winner had won a concert, and they didn't know who the person was going to be singing and stuff. So they gave them like a full on meal barbecue thing layout, and then and it was funny because they would make the thing look alive, and it's like send it over to so and so, and they came over to me, and I was on the boat, and I had a guitar, and I was fishing and singing. Did the little concert. So, but I love it, man. I love fishing. Grew up fishing, and I got a little bass boat, and I go as much as I can, man. It's my place to go, and my happy place, just to be sitting out in the water, and just enjoy it, man.
I love it, man. So, bass. Like, I mean, I know that in Ontario, northern Ontario, a lot of bass going on, but like I grew up fishing like pike and walleye and perch, and we didn't have bass out west, or at least we didn't fish for them. Mm-hmm. I've yet to catch a bass in my life, but they seem so fun.
Well, I mean, it's the same with me. Like, we grew up the same place. I mean, so, I fished for pike and walleye and perch, and, you catch the odd bass here and there, but it wasn't what we were trying to fish for.
Right.
But here, I mean, it's all about bass fishing. Bass fishing is the biggest thing ever here. However, the bass here are a lot bigger.
Right.
Yeah. And bass fishing is an art. I mean, it's they don't use live baits here, so it's all plastic baits or whatever, crank baits and spinner baits and all the different types of bait. And so, I mean, there's a lot that goes into fishing. The waters are different, the temperatures are different. When I first started fishing here, I mean, it took me a couple of years before I could catch anything.
Really?
It was I mean, because I came from a place where you could throw a piece of bologna on a hook and you'll catch a fish, but here they don't like bologna. I don't know. It's like it's hard. It was a whole other thing, man. I made some great friends who were anglers and professional anglers even, who were taking me out fishing and showing me kind of what the deal was. And so once I started figuring that out and getting good at it, I became even more addicted to it and enjoy doing it. So yeah, but I love coming up there fishing. It's all different. They're two totally different things.
Yeah, the whole water temperature thing's got to be a big factor, just where the fish live as far as depth, right?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, and here it's like it's not the same regulations and stuff, like when fish are spawning there, you don't fish, but here it's like that's when you go fishing. It's like you go and you smash them when they're huge and spawning, because they're all sitting in beds on the bank, like off the banks and stuff like that. So it's a different world, but fun.
Super cool.
It's a lot of fun, man. I love it. I don't even catch them. I don't keep them or anything. I just fish for the sport of it. And,
Drum roll, Frank.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, Gil. Drum roll.
Isolation Records.
Oh.
Now listen.
So that's interesting, that question.
At the end of last season, right?
Yeah.
We stopped saying Isolation Records, and we started saying Isolation Crate of Records, because nobody could stick it to just 3, eh, Frank?
Well, one person did.
Okay.
One person did.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to answer that question, put yourself in that situation, right? Because it's like you're talking about if you were just stranded on a desert island, and what would you bring with you? Well, it's easy for me. I mean, obviously, my number one would be, the Conway Twitty Greatest Hits, because I'm all about it. That's who I learned my music from, and I love it. I could listen to it forever and never get tired of it.
Awesome.
My other one would probably be the George Strait box set, because that's kind of what I transitioned from Conway to George Strait, where I got a little more of the 90s country. Those are my favorite, traditional and 90s country and everything. And then I put a lot of thought into what the third one might be, and I realized I would probably get like the Wiggles. Yeah, because I figured that if I'm out there long enough that I'm ready to like end it, I will just play the Wiggles over and over and over, and it would really help me kind of.
There you go. I
take myself out on the Wiggles.
You're talking about the same Wiggles that I know, that my kids.
Yeah.
The Wiggles, yeah.
The Wiggles, yeah.
How do you know about the Wiggles?
Well, everybody, they're huge. They're bigger than all the artists I've talked about.
You're totally right, man.
Yeah. They're massive.
Dude, that's the best number 3 record ever.
3 record?
Yeah. Well, it's a closer.
You nailed it with 3. That was, I think, our last guest last season did 3, and then we started up this year, and you did 3. We've had people saying, "Well, my singles would be this, but my albums would be this, or my playlist."
Playlist. Yeah, playlists. You name it. Our buddy Chris Chambers, we just kept going. We're like, dude, that's 8. Like, you can stop. He goes, no, let's keep going. He just kept going and going.
Oh man,
so,
yeah. Were they like naming obscure stuff too? Like, yeah,
stuff that we all should have in our collection, and we all do. But this is
just not that guy. It's actually been very weird. And like for me, in a strange way, I only know country music. I really do. Like, it's all I listen to, because I guess like from an early age, I was really just trying to first I loved it, but I also started singing and learning how to play the guitar and all that kind of stuff. So I really stuck to that. Like one of my first concerts that I ever went to was, I think it was like Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister or something at the Sudbury Arena. And it was I only went because my buddy, his cousin worked the door, so he kind of let us in, and so I could go to this. Oh, and one of them was an Iron Maiden too. And I didn't know any of the songs. Like, I didn't know any of their music, and I wasn't really into it, and so I never really continued that. And I'm ashamed to say, and I think I'm going to still do it and get around to it, but I'm not one of those guys who has taken the time to listen to all the Beatles music and try to appreciate it for what it is. Right. And I'm old enough. I think I've finally reached a maturity age where I think now I'm ready to kind of listen to what music is for what it is. I'm actually even to the point where I've never been a fan of someone like Chris Christopherson or Willie Nelson, because they weren't appealing to me as singers, but their music and their songs is what they're about and stuff. So I'm trying to now kind of dig in and appreciate music for the right reasons when it comes to artists like that.
And why? What brought you around to doing that now?
I realize I'm missing out on it. Like, I never really, you got to like music for different reasons. And until now, I think I liked music for the singer and who the singers were and how great of a singer they were. Right. And maybe it's because I've grown more as a songwriter and everything too, that I want to appreciate music for, for what it's supposed to be for certain people,
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've just come around to being able to listen to music as a whole again.
Yeah,
I've spent my entire life lifting guitar parts and listening to all the different parts, and that's where I appreciate the music, as opposed to just what's the, I may not like this band, but hang on, there's something about it that everybody loves as the whole. It's not just the musicians listening to it, and it takes a while when all you're doing is focusing on the one thing as a career.
Well, I mean, that's different. You too. Like, I think people, record producers and engineers listen to music differently than people do, just because they're so used to looking at it and in waves and kind of editing it and all that kind of stuff. So you do have to kind of step back if you want to appreciate it as a whole, like you're saying, and just kind of what it is as one piece of music, for sure.
What are you watching in these crazy times, sir? What am
I watching? Well, I watch a lot of fishing videos. I do. TV shows. Gosh, what have I A lot. I know it's hard to think about that kind of stuff, man.
Yeah.
Because it's nothing right now. You know what I like watching? This is weird, but I'm weird. You ever watch those shows where they show you like all the worst prisons in the world, and they're like, this guy goes in there and he's like, I was watching that last night, and I was like, oh my gosh, like the ones in Russia and stuff.
Yeah, man.
People aren't even allowed to stand up straight. They got to look at the floor all the time.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Medieval.
That stuff is like interesting. Like it's like it blows my mind, you know. And then there was like this one prison in Denmark or something that was like a luxury hotel. Like their whole rehabilitation was about, you know, not tormenting or, you know, feel like they were being punished. And it was like,
how did it work? Did they mention anything about their stats, or, you know, were people coming out and being rehabilitated?
I mean, people were wanting to get in. You know? Yeah, it was weird because, you know what, there was one in Greenland, you know, and so the thing was that the population there, like, it's not a lot. I think it's like 50,000 or something like that. Yeah. So I mean, there was a lot of chances that the people that were in there when they did get out knew the families of the guards and everybody. Like, it was a small enough community that they were. It changed the way that they were, you know, doing stuff too. So like that was another prison that was. It's funny we're talking about prison. We should go into Johnny Cash after this.
Great.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, it was to me that's interesting. Not that I have any desire to go there. It's just one of those things that maybe it has to do with my stint as a nurse in the forensic ward.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, we all feel a little bit imprisoned, you know, just
it all comes around. Yeah, that's another thing too. Gosh, how you guys do it?
Even though there's times, you know, I don't need the massive crowds.
Yeah,
I miss just this, you know, just the street life and you know. And
I feel like I have been kind of, for me, you know, I have a son and a daughter who live in Calgary in Edmonton. Okay. And my daughter has 2 little grandkids. So I have grandkids, so she has a son and a daughter. So it's been a year now. I made a year where I haven't seen them now because of all of this. Because, I mean, flying from the US to Canada is not a thing right now. So you can't. So that's been especially hard, you know, like we do this, thank goodness.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
But these little kids are, you know, are like 1 and 3, and they're a good little age that I'm missing out on being able to really, you know, have fun with them and stuff. And so, yeah, that's been hard. That's kind of one of the tough things for sure. But
were you traveling back and forth on a regular basis, like out west?
Yeah, I mean, I was doing, you know, fortunately, I was doing quite a few shows too. So it was, you know, whenever I was out west playing music, I would stay with them and get to see my family there. But even when I wasn't playing, we made sure we'd see each other as much as possible, you know. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this has been a long. I can't believe it's hard for me to understand a year has gone by that I haven't seen my kids, you know.
They're looking for you all night long, darling. You've got to talk to me. I want to tell you how wrong I've been, and I won't do it again. You know that woman didn't mean a thing to me. I hope I don't embarrass you too much in front of all your friends. I'm gonna get down on my help me make it, please. I can't give you up, 'cause you made love so good.
Conway Twitty show.
Mhm.
I think you were talking with somebody who'd give you some insight to Conway himself and his career. Like those kind of stories you had mentioned from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to that, I mean, with the Conway show, I did some research and spoke to people who knew him,
Mhm.
and musicians and record label people. And Sheila was the head of MCA, so that was his record label. And so these are people that got to know him personally,
Mhm.
and so that's always interesting too. I think fans like to know about the 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 musicians or the artists that they like a little bit more than just their music. So they want to know what their background and what their home life is like and stuff like that. And so Conway was an interesting man. I mean, he started off, like a lot of people in that generation, wanting to be like Elvis.
Mhm.
So his music at first was not country; it was more of that rock and roll generation of Elvis type of music. And his first projects, if you buy them, is I mean, his hair, the whole sound, everything was like an Elvis type of a thing. And then he's, a thing that I thought was interesting also is that he for a while lived in Hamilton.
Mhm.
Oh, really?
You know,
I didn't
he
know that.
did.
Make believe here, wasn't it?
He did. He wrote "It's Only Make Believe" while living in Hamilton, and I think a lot of his songs he wrote with his drummer, actually, which is surprising to me. But anyways, I'm kidding. But yeah. So, and then another thing is, like, he went on to he had the opportunity and was offered a contract to play professional baseball with the Phillies, and never did that. But he wanted to be Elvis, man, and so he stayed in music, and so that's kind of cool,
Very cool.
just stuff like that. And there's a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, that he has a son, Michael Twitty, and a grandson that you guys have probably seen on the road. They're performing it all over Canada, also doing tributes to their dad and grandfather, and so it's yeah, I'm sure they have a lot of cool, because they tell cool stories, but from a family perspective.
Right. What's Johnny Cash to you? I mean, he's a completely different vibe compared to Conway or George Jones or George Strait or,
Yeah, yeah. I really thought about doing a Johnny Cash type of show. That was something that I mean, I like a lot of his songs, obviously, and Johnny Cash has a great story. I mean, it's an incredible story, and it's amazing how someone like him continued to be popular for generations and generations, and still today, people, all the kids know and like Johnny Cash's music and stuff. That's wild, And so, but I mean, I'll play a couple of his songs in the Legends show and just kind of feature him in that setting instead of doing a whole night. There are quite a few Johnny Cash tribute artists that are out there that play the whole deal, and I didn't want to really compete with that. And I felt too, like, I don't know, Johnny Cash also has was very it was a Christian artist, too. Like, a lot of music was gospel and all that kind of stuff, and his beliefs were very profound, very deep and stuff. So he's an interesting artist, across the board when it comes to all of those different aspects, for sure.
Yeah, definitely more edgier than, say, well, different edgy, I guess, than Conway, or different edgy than, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, edgy. Yeah, I mean, if you've seen Walk the Line, I mean, about some of his story, obviously in that movie, although not a lot of people, thought it was an accurate depiction, but it's got to be still pretty much, in general, a lot of things that happened there for him. But I mean, yeah, I mean, innovative, right? You gotta look at someone like that and say, like, he was a leader. He did things that that opened the doors. And I mean, just to have the thought of saying, I'm just going to go to this prison and do a show because those guys are real people. I'm going to want to connect with those individuals and stuff. And I thought it's cool. I think it's cool that Merle Haggard was an inmate in the prison.
Right.
I mean, how wild is that?
That's so wild. At the same time, no, not the same time, right? Because
I don't know. I want to say yes, but maybe I'm not sure if that's true.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be the better story.
What was that, Fred?
I said that'd be the better story if it's true. Like Merle was in
Well, we can just make it that story. Spread that rumor.
Good.
Do you have any words of inspiration for young artists or people, coming up in this new music world, new country world?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great industry. I've enjoyed, I've had some incredible experiences, opportunities. I have done shows with Merle Haggard, with Buck Owens, with, just the Dixie Chicks. And I've had great experiences, which obviously I'll never forget. I'll cherish those memories. And I've had the opportunity to share music that I've written that has affected people, in their lives, which is not something everybody gets to do. And so I appreciate those situations also. The love and you get back from people for doing what you do is again, something that's amazing and hard to describe. It's a great thing that you get to feel. And so the industry is awesome. If I would never discourage someone from wanting to be in the music business as a singer. I think if there's any advice is, I think originality wins, I think creativity wins now. There's so much out there, and it's so hard to stand out. And so I think if you're an artist that, if on a business level, if you want to make sure you're going to get attention and you're going to stand out and everything. And at the same time, you want to be authentic and real about who you are as an artist. So there's that balance. But I think that's important. And I think surrounding yourself, like nobody can do this alone. So I think you want to surround yourself with people that have influence and that can open doors for you and that are, there to help you and want to help you and stuff like that, because I think that's necessary. And network a lot, just get out and just meet people, man. Come out and everyone in this business, in my experience, is very approachable and very, open and there's nothing scary about it. It seems sometimes that celebrities are removed, and you can't access them. But I can tell you, if you went to and registered and went to a CCMA, function, you could pretty much talk to anybody that's there, and they're happy to talk to you. And people are good people, right? In this business. So I don't know. I just encourage people to do it. I encourage them to be original and creative and stand out. And I still believe that, the song is also very important, so make sure, pay attention to music and pay attention to your best song wins, like you need great songs to be competitive in this industry. So if you need them, I've got some. Or I know people who have them, so we pitching songs.
Exactly.
But seriously, man, it's just, I don't know. It's a fun, and I don't regret a moment of ever being in this business.
I think, I have it at a different level, and Ed and I have, in the music, and people said, well, you never, you weren't the famous this person. I said, I've had a great time already. If I was to stop right now playing music, I said, I've had a great run. I can't complain about what I've enjoyed and who I've met and experienced and all that stuff. So every level of it is just as great as, the one before it. So, yeah, good words.
I agree. And you know what? That's the thing too about this business is that I know people who travel around, in a van and play coffee houses and just that's all they want to do. It's not about, they're completely happy doing that because they just want to sing and they want to, that's their deal. And that's what's nice, is that you can do that, or you can, be playing in a stadium like Kenny Chesney for 80,000 people.
Break it to them gently when you tell my mom and dad. When you see my baby sister, be as kind as you can. Break it to my grandma, who said the boy's wild and bad. Break it to them gently when you tell them that I won't be coming home again. 'Cause I'm running with a gun and it isn't any fun as a fugitive. Fighting for my life and I don't know if I'll make it alone. Running with a gun and it isn't any fun as a fugitive. God, I wanna go home. Lord, I wish I was home. When you see my lady with the twinkle in her eye, tell it to her softly.
You are a Dark Roast fan. The stronger, the better.
Yeah.
We sent you some Sting. What do you think?
I think you should call it Punch in the Face instead of Sting. It's awesome. It's really good. I like it a lot, man. So I like a strong coffee and good flavorful coffee, and it's I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing it with me. I hope you guys sell a ton of it.
Yeah, us too.
Yeah. Well, how is business? You guys
good?
You guys enjoying doing this?
Yes, there's no doubt, and Frank will back me up on this. There's no doubt that it's a ton of work, if not more work than I've ever put into music in my life.
Sure.
But it's awesome. We love it. We have a passion for coffee. We have, it's just fun to work on a daily basis around something that you have a passion of. And we've been, both Frank and I have been fortunate to do that in coffee and music. So how do you complain? What do you think?
And the whole stoppage for music kind of worked out in our favor of the launch and all that, and getting their business acumen up to at least an operating level. From coming from the musician world, right? So
I have been watching a lot of Shark Tank. This is maybe a Shark Tank situation.
Hey, get that brand up there. Yeah, yeah. You got any questions?
Well, do you know where why they call it a cup of Joe? Do you have that information?
There's a couple of stories why it's called Cup of Joe. One was with the American soldiers, GI Joes, having the coffee, and the other one was there was a Navy commander who didn't want them drinking, and his name was George something, so all they could drink was coffee, not rum or booze. So they called it a Cup of George, and it got slowed down to a Cup of Joe. Those are the two most common.
They do slow things down in the South. They went from George to Joe. But here's another possibility.
All right.
So I'm told that the term Cup of Joe comes from the fact that Joe is also another word for just a common man, Joe. Basically like average Joe. He's the average person. And coffee is the drink of the common man.
Yeah.
So it's a Cup of Joe.
Right.
Probably related to GI Joe. That's where GI Joe would have been the same, where they got the name.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
You know what's on next for Mr. Gil Grand? Fishing.
Yeah.
But then once you're released from your psycho ward, then you're good to go on these different touring shows.
I'm going to tour, man. I'm going to play some great country music and keep writing songs and just, yeah, man, just kind of be involved, stay in the business.
Hey, listen, thanks for coming on Coffee Hang, Gil. I appreciate you as a human. I appreciate you as a musician, and I hope we get to play music again together someday soon, my friend.
We definitely will, man. I appreciate you both. Thank you, Frank and Eddie.
Yeah, thank you, Gil.
Coffee, get you some.
Cheers.
All right,
Yeah, we're going.
Go on fishing.
there we go.
Oh, Gil, thank you. Yeah, go catch some bass and
Yeah.
enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care, guys.
Yeah, you too, brother. That was Mr. Gil Grand. Oh,
Amazing.
Wow. What a life.
Whole life and positive of it. There's because that whole life has its ups and downs. And you gotta you go down and you just keep working your way back up.
And it just hilarious, not hilarious, but also hilarious to see, the trials and tribulations of him moving from one place to another, and that's not working, and over here, and those are big moves, right? Like,
yeah, that's not like just going down the street or to the next city over. That's across continents.
Across continents, and like on the other side of it, from the east to the west, and then back to the east, and then down. It's
down, yeah.
Pretty cool story, man.
Yeah, buddy.
I feel good. You feel good? Does this have to? Does this have to?
Because we got to go out every time it does. All right.